It's the Marc Lee Show, bringing you enlightenment and culture.
All right, folks. It's on a Sunday evening here in Durham, North Carolina, and we're actually going to do a special broadcast today. We're going to talk about a lot of things that are going on in the society, what's going on in the world, and of course, the very important role that we should be playing with Mother Earth and what Mother Earth is all about. So definitely, we need to be paying attention to that. I know that I've been paying attention to a lot of what the animals and things of that nature have been doing. I know there have been reports of like dolphins appearing in places where they used not to be at. And of course, I've even seen rabbits and other things popping up around this community and actually being fairly friendly, not being as what some people might consider scared or other things of the humans, because they know that us humans have been going through some serious changes lately in terms of fighting the coronavirus and things of that nature. I'm pleased to have Billie join me in the conversation. Billie is here with us, and Billie is definitely one that is a fan of Mother Earth and Mother Nature and all of that. So definitely glad to have Billie on the conversation. I know that in talking to Billie, she had talked about being involved in earlier in the Native American culture. No celebration a little bit of the human connection to Mother Earth. I'm actually of the opinion that over the last several years, we've been getting away from that, but coronavirus and other things came along, and they've actually gotten us to, in my opinion, become a little bit more grounded with the way we should treat Mother Earth and things of that nature. Now, whether this is a temporary reprieve or a permanent reprieve, who knows? But I'm hoping that it's going to be a more permanent kind of thing, and that we will have respect the way that our ancestors wanted us to have that kind of respect with Mother Earth and what is going on. So definitely glad to have Billie on with us. Billie, tell us where you're joining us from and a little bit about your background and also what your thoughts are about how you're coping with the coronavirus and what we're going on with the pandemic, and also just how you're coping with life in general. And if you think that we as Earth citizens, humans, are actually doing a better job, and maybe it's being forced on us because of what we're having to deal with the pandemic. And I'd love to hear your thoughts as to what's going on in the world and your thoughts on it.
Hi, Mark. There's a pleasure to be on your show, and my little bit of background that I do have, which is probably about 64 years of it, but I'm from northern Alberta, Canada, and a little town. I was raised in northern Alberta, which is a town called Manning. I now live in just a little small community outside Grand Prairie, and I've had this gift of reading animals, communicating with animals, and since I was just a child, I come onto this planet. I really believe in my own heart that we are not from here. We come onto this vessel that we choose to, and it's a beautiful gift to be able to talk and to heal the animals, that's for sure, and as well as Mother Earth. As far as this coronavirus stuff goes, it's a bunch of BS as far as I'm concerned. It's a form of control for them to keep controlling us. And I think a lot of us all over the planet have had enough of it. So it's time to sit up.
Definitely, and I know that a couple of my producers here have said something very similar. They said that they're tired of it and want us to stand up and to actually kind of have a more positive attitude in terms of actually fighting against the powers that be and things of that nature. So what is your opinion as to how we as humans are doing here and there in Canada? And I know Canada has a rich tradition of being more connected to Mother Earth, in my opinion, than some of us here in the States are. But just how do you think we're doing as both a world economy and an American economy? And I mean both of the Americans both of the people that are part of Mother Earth, Canada, the U.S., and I would even definitely put Mexico in that as well. But how are we doing in terms of treating the world and treating the animals? I know that you're talking to them regularly and having conversations. I've got friends that say that I will have conversations with the animals, but I do believe we have to have respect for them and try to listen to the signals that they give us. I'm of the opinion that we sometimes don't give enough of the warnings that they're giving us. I remember that even when 9/11 happened, I was talking to friends of mine from New York, and I know that was almost 20 years ago, but I remember not seeing some of the animals being around as much as they used to. It's my opinion that they might have gotten messages from the Most High, the higher spirit, whatever people want to give it, that us humans were about to get really stupid, so they might want to duck and dodge and hide.
As far as humanity goes and what we're doing with Mother Earth, I really think that our collective has to be more connected to Mother Earth. And, you know, whether it's the trees, whether it's the animals, whatever it is, we have to be more connected to her. And we've got to stop, we've got to listen. And that space that we have to come to as humanity, we have to come to a place of love and peace and compassion. And the biggest thing here, I believe, in order to change anything, is to harness the power of love within ourselves. Then that way we can literally move mountains. And as far as the animals and Mother Nature, get out there and, you know, walk in Mother Nature, talk to the trees, talk to the plants, talk to the animals. I mean, they're listening and they have a lot to tell us. It just takes a matter of clearing yourself and just sitting there listening and communicating back and forth with them.
And what ways do you suggest that people go about clearing themselves? Because I agree that too often folks are not clearing themselves and they're not paying attention to what's going on. So what ways do you suggest that they go out there and clear themselves?
Well, my suggestion is that you use sage, and then you just take your hands and you literally move the energy off of yourself and get yourself clear. This is what I do before I communicate with the animals, is I clear all my energy. Anybody else, you know, when you go to public places, you always pick up other people's crap and you're happy, and then you come back kind of pissed off. Well, you know, you're picking up other people's stuff. So what I suggest is just to clear yourself, just shake it off, and save yourself, and then you're clear. You're clear with that animal or that tree or that plant or whatever. Like, that is where we have to come back to, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's definitely what we need to do more of. I know that another thing that has been done in a lot of the native cultures is the whole concept of also taking the time to reflect in a private space. So if you would talk about that as well, because I know a lot of times in a lot of the native cultures, they'll do the sweat lodge or some of the other things in order to clear their minds and things of that nature. So not everybody's aware of that kind of philosophy and that kind of lifestyle, but I was wondering if you could speak to that, and also whether you do kind of rituals on a regular basis.
For myself, I'm very much a hermit, as per se. I do work in the oil patch. I'm a pipeline inspector, and you know, I mean, I go out and do my work. But when I come home, I'm very much to myself. So I just I work a lot on myself, on my inner self. As far as the animals and stuff are concerned, they've done their work. It's just myself, and I always continue to do the work. And a lot of times you got to do some deep diving to do that. And there's a lot of, you know, whether it's hurt or, you know, there's all kinds of good stuff. Insecurities, you deal with that on a daily basis. I mean, that's what we're down here as far as I'm concerned. We're kind of a test subject type thing. And we choose to come down here, but we choose, when we come down here, to forget what we're down here for. So that's what we're learning as we speak and as we move into a higher consciousness.
Yeah, but that's what I think we're all trying to work on, is get to that higher consciousness and things of that nature. So it seems to me like what you're learning is that a lot of people, unfortunately, have not really found their purpose in life, and that's a shame, because I know a lot of times that's what we're trying to do, is find out what our purpose is in life. When do you think that you discovered what your purpose was, and what do you consider your purpose down here on this planet to be, and how are you going about accomplishing that?
Well, my purpose, I've realized, is the gift of giving messages to either animals and or humans. I've got a gift of talking to animals. I've got a gift of saying, okay, if I go into someone's horses or animals with the energy healing, I can tell where their sore spots, and the same with humanity. I can tell where they're ailing or what's going on and stuff like this. And that is my gift. I mean, yeah, I'm good at helping others, but when it comes to myself, I think we all have a little bit of issue with that.
Understood, and definitely that's a thing that we have to deal with, is trying to find our inner ways to deal with our inner self as well. What do you think is some of the most unusual messages? I mentioned the story that I shared with people during 9/11, but what are some examples of some stories that you've gotten in terms of messages or in terms of communicating with the animals? And I remember that definitely I have some native in my own bloodline and everything, and I know that a lot of times the past native tribes would even name folks after their Indian ancestors. So I was just wondering what some of your thoughts were in terms of some messages that you have received.
My messages, a lot of it was directed towards the human aspect, and it's from across we can call it the heavens or the other part of the universe. And as far as the animals go and stuff like this, they give me the messages, so I relate it to the humans that are in charge of those animals. And I don't really. It's a beautiful gift, and like I said, it's easy to work on animals and talk to the trees and Mother Earth and stuff like that. That is where we have to be at, because we all have to take a second look within ourselves. And you know what? There's too much chaos, too much greed, too much power, and go back to the basics of really getting back to Mother Earth, where we can understand her, and that's where the messages are coming from.
And who are some of the philosophers that you really have enjoyed that actually seem to get the message of the power of Mother Earth? I know that I was a fan of Russell Means, definitely a fan of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. I was just wondering, who are some of the folks that as you've done your reading and your research that you have really enjoyed in terms of getting the message and actually understanding the message of what's going on?
Chief Dan George is a good one. And then basically, and it might sound funny or whatever to a lot of people, but I get my messages from spirit.
I'm sorry, what was that? I didn't catch what you said.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. What my messages, for example, the ones that I admire are Chief Dan George and the elders, and it doesn't matter which tribe they belong to, whether the Cree or Cherokee or whoever. I mean, the elders have the messages. I also get messages from spirit, which I relate to people and or animals. Depends on who they want me to count.
And how much communication do you think we do in terms of listening to dreams and things of that nature? Because I'm of the opinion that a lot of times the ancestors are trying to communicate with us through dreams, as well as through some of the messages that they're sending us through the animals and things of that nature. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts? Do you think that we do a good enough job of paying attention to the dreams and the messages that our ancestors, those that have moved on, might be sending us? And how do you try to fine tune and get those messages yourself?
Most definitely. I mean, there are always messages, because once you get to that sleep mode and stuff like this, you're entering into basically two worlds. So you're walking in the other side of things. And they always have messages to give you. It's a matter of deciphering them. And I know for myself, I have a problem sometimes deciphering what message is what. And then sometimes the messages be really clear, and then you know as to where to give them to a person and or an animal.
Understood, definitely. And I know a lot of times here in the States and around the world, people get too caught up in the field of wondering what's going to be on the other side, and if there is on the other side. So I was just thinking, how do you go about your life in terms of like realizing that we may be moving on from this plane to another plane? Because you said that in your thoughts that oftentimes you feel that we're sent down here on a mission and we have to fulfill that mission. And then I'm thinking that you're probably a big believer in reincarnation. So we come back in several forms and variations. Is that what your belief system is?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are afraid of death, but there's nothing to be afraid of, because we're going to another journey. And that journey is awesome because from there we get to choose if we choose to come back here or if we plan to stay. And it's actually a lot of times I walk between both worlds. So I could be down here, but literally I'm walking up there with my grandmothers or my star brothers and sisters. And yeah, it's, I know at my age and stuff, since I recognize my gift and whatnot, it's kind of hard to get out here on the public and, it's just like, okay, let me do my work and continue on, but I guess it's not that way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you that you have to pay attention to those that have gone on. I know that I still feel connected with both of my grandparents, actually, and both of my granddads, who have both passed on, and definitely some other relatives who have passed on. So I definitely feel connected to them. And I try to see or hear some of the messages that they may be sending in through the dream world and things of that nature. I do sometimes wonder, and I know some people wonder if they're going to, because I know some people think that through the process of coming back and through the process of reincarnation that you're going from one end of the spectrum to the other, with I guess humans being the top of the spectrum. And then I had some friends that would openly say that they do not want to come back as an ant. And I'm like, well, the ant may have a better life than you in some ways.
That's true. You know what? They never leave you anyways. They're always with you. You can talk to them anytime you want. And, it's a beautiful journey. It really is. And that's why on the native side of things, that you have weights and you celebrate their death as per se on this lifetime, and then they choose to go to another life. Now, whether they come back as a man or a woman, that's totally up to them. But at the same time, death is nothing. It's a beautiful journey.
Yes, I agree that life is a wonderful journey, and definitely it'll be interesting to see what's on the other side. And I know some people have talked about being able to see the light that might exist afterwards. Have you talked to folks in your communication or in your experience that have actually had that experience, and what have they shared with you about that experience? And are you expecting that when your end comes that you'll be ready for it, or how are you preparing just in life in general? I was just wondering if you have made that journey.
I was close to death a few times, but my sister, she did die, and she was telling me that she did, she's back, of course, but she died for a few seconds, but she had a choice of whether to come back or not. And I believe in my own heart of hearts and in the spirit world, that if you're not finished your journey, you will come back. You have that choice if you're sitting there in front of the Creator, so to speak, and you just have that choice because you're not done what you're going to do. Like if somebody asks you, okay, tomorrow you're going to die, is your life fulfilled? Personally, I'd say no. I've got a lot of healing to do and helping and assisting with Mother Earth and creation to get to that point of love and compassion.
Yeah, definitely. And I know even in relationship situations, I've known that I've been in some where we have felt like we have met in the past. Sometimes we felt it might have been a pleasant meeting, and sometimes it wasn't a pleasant meeting. And sometimes we also have wondered if the journey was going to continue on the next life, and whether it would be as pleasant or unpleasant this time around as it was the last time around. So I've been in at least two relationships where I've had conversations with a significant other, and they have talked about the fact that they felt that we had met in a previous lifetime. So I'm just wondering what some of your thoughts are about that whole concept of soulmates, and whether soulmates exist, and whether soulmates whether there's only one soulmate. Because I've heard some people try to put that theory out that you can only have one soulmate in your life, but I believe that there are actually multiple soulmates in your life, and that you may run across many of them during the course of your life. But I was wondering what your thoughts are.
No, you know what? There's a lot of soulmates, and it depends. It's just, as far as I'm concerned, to meet the right person or whatever, the timing has to be right. And the timing is not when you want it or the other person wants it. It's when the universe says, okay, now it's time, we'll put you together, and or then you're going to meet these people or that people. Because like I've said before, when I've gone to, whether it's the First Nations or the Métis settlements, they've always told me, you've been here before. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I've lived many different lives. And it's the whole aspect of the whole thing is it's a wonderful journey. Sure, down here sometimes what we're going through and stuff like this, it's a bitch, but at the same time, I just hope that everybody realizes it's a test too as well. And you will meet your soulmate, as per se on that level, and it could be your brother, your sister, your uncle, or whoever. And I'm not talking about boyfriend, girlfriend. I'm talking about soulmate that you can communicate with, and you have a lot of things together, and you can also keep moving forward on the journey and help to make a difference with Mother Earth and humanity.
Definitely. What advice would you give to humanity right now? Like I said, we're going through so much with the coronavirus, with Black Lives Matter, and with so much else. What advice would you, as one that tries to stay in tune with Mother Earth and what Mother Earth is talking about, what advice would you give to folks?
My suggestion would be to look inside, and that's where we all have to look. Instead of the outside, look on the inside. And from where we come on the inside is what makes a difference towards the outside, if that makes sense to you.
Makes a lot of sense. But would you explain just a little bit further for those that might be listening to it and want to get a little bit more detail as to what that philosophy means?
Well, that philosophy, as far as I'm concerned, is, okay, for example, Jesus came down, or he was born on this planet. He was an ordinary man, just like yourself, whoever, a human being, but he had 100%, he was using 100% of his consciousness. So that is the point where we have to get to. Sure, there's this coronavirus stuff going on, and there's the cabal going on, and all this kind of good stuff, but you know what? That really doesn't matter. It's a matter of how you are within yourself, how you treat yourself, how you treat others. Now, when you start feeding into all this coronavirus and what's going on, it gives the negative energy. If you give it to that aspect of things, it'll keep growing. If you don't pay any attention to it, then it won't grow. Focus on the love and the compassion and what you can do to help make yourself better and what you can do to learn. Because it doesn't matter if you have tons of money or whatever, like a lot of material things, that doesn't matter. What matters is the thing of going, once we cross over that line, what did you learn? What did you learn down here? How did you treat the people or the animals or the Mother Earth? I believe that's what that's about.
Wow. And what can you do to treat the animals better? Because I think that too often we don't treat the animals that well. So too often we get caught up in the whole pet kind of mentality and things of that nature. And I'm not knocking folks that have dogs and cats, but what is some of the advice you give folks in terms of how they can engage the animal kingdom?
Well, I believe, in my opinion, listen to your animal. Talk to your animals. Doesn't matter even if it's not your animal. Sit there and take your time and just listen. Because they have a lot to say. They have a voice. And I've written a book here, and it's called Quiet Whispers. But, they do not talk like out loud, as to say. It's communications, telepathy, and that's the point and stuff where we're to get to. I just feel that Mother Earth, whether you talk to the trees or the plants or the animals, is a very important part of our journey. And that's the only part of the journey that's going to help heal this whole planet.
Yeah. And I know you talked, we had emailed each other back and forth about Star Brothers and Star Sisters. And actually, I have a good friend of mine who actually does one of our shows here on Monday earlier, being Zach Robertson. And he talked about the fact that believing he's definitely not from this planet. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about there is actually people from other planets of that nature? So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were, whether you think that there are folks that were from other planets that might be here on this planet and just how they are treated and what your thoughts are on that and your philosophy on Star Brothers and Star Sisters, because I know that's something that you mentioned to me about.
The Star Brothers and Sisters, that's where, as far as I'm concerned, that's where we come from. I know that's where we come from. So we choose to have this human vessel. But yes, there is a lot of them down here. They won't intervene. because it was our free choice. This is a planet of free choice. So as far as myself, I do have them here, and I've been trying to sell my house for the last 3 years. Reason being why it's hard to sell is because they're here and the vibration is a lot higher than what people are used to. So I've had people stay here and say, you know what, okay, we've seen this entity or whatever. If I've seen them, they don't bother me. I know what I have to do. They know what they have to do. My dogs see them. And that kind of makes it kind of difficult when people do come over if they don't have the understanding of where we come from.
Yeah, and I think a lot of folks don't have that understanding. I was wondering, because you mentioned Jesus earlier, but I'm of the opinion that a lot of the great prophets of many of the religions. One of our producers is from India, and of course there's that rich Hindu and Buddhist culture around those areas. But then there have also been great Muslim prophets and Christians. But I'm of the opinion that a lot of these prophets had a very similar message of love and healing, things of that nature. But I do sometimes think that the religions have gotten too tied up in what I think probably the Bible would consider almost like a new version of the Tower of Babel, where there's a lot of confusion to what's going on in religion. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that? Is there too much confusion in organized religion right now, and us not paying attention to the true message, but only paying attention to the personality?
You know, Mark, here's the thing. This is my personal opinion, and nobody has to believe it or whatever. But all these prophets, so-called prophets and stuff, yes, they were down here. Yes, the message was to learn that we have the power within to do the same thing as they did. To really, like the biggest, I believe, the biggest obstacle for humanity down here is to learn how to harness the power of love within yourself.
That makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you on that. We have to learn how to do that and all of that kind of healing. Now, I know that you said in your mind that there's too much of those conspiracy theories going on. So what do you mean by that? I know in one of our emails you said that you think that there are too many folks believing in conspiracy theories, but then you also said that there's definitely, you have to be careful of the power. What exactly were you talking about? What exactly mean?
Yeah, what I was saying, Mark, was just say, okay, yeah, I'm very much an activist too in the so-called conspiracy stuff, but I also realize the more you feed into something, the more it grows. You take 9/11, for example, you look at all the compassion throughout the whole planet that it created. So I believe that acknowledge it and let it go. But at the same time, harness the power of compassion, the power of love, the power of understanding animals, all this kind of good stuff. That's where it is. And then once you change, everything around you changes.
Yeah, that's very true. I can see where that definitely when they start doing some of the even some of the transcendental meditations or start trying to internally understand who they are, it does seem to give them a much better concept of themselves and a much better attitude to themselves. Actually, sometimes, and this is just my personal thought, I wish it was almost mandatory for some of our world leaders had to spend some time with some form of meditation or reflection, because then they might not do as many of the crazy things as they do in the world. I mean, I know we talk about wanting prayer in the schools, and I'm not knocking those that want that or wanting other things, but I do think that sometimes we just need, in all of our institutions, I would even argue in our workplace, it would be great if we just could have maybe at the beginning of the day some type of reflection period where you actually had to put yourself in tune with what is going on in Mother Nature and around the world.
Exactly. And that's the best thing. Like, I mean, as far as leadership, it doesn't matter what country it is on this planet, there needs to be a person or persons in charge. And we can all be in charge of this too, because we don't need no governments and all this kind of good stuff. All there has to be is someone in there that has respect for creation.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand that. Definitely have that great respect for creation and a great understanding of what creation is all about. That would be great if that would happen. I was just wondering, when did you first come into your own understanding of your own roots and everything? And if you would, just share a little bit about your own personal history and what your roots are. Because like I said, I noticed you said that you have some family members, I believe, that are First Nation, but I was just wondering what your own roots are and how you came about discovering your roots.
Okay, when I was, like you said, when I was small and stuff, like there was always, on the native side of things, I was always connected. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the parents, if you're born through anything, are native. I mean, in the big pictures of things, yes, we are definitely all native. But at the same time, as a human being, yeah, there's certain lineages and all kinds of good stuff. That's where I say, okay, yes, I do follow the red road. I do the spiritual. I honor the Mother Earth and I honor the animals and my ancestors. And, you know, as far as that growing up and stuff like that, yeah, we did a lot of, you know, working with our brothers and sisters, and we didn't have no judgment as to say, okay, well, he's native or she's not, or whoever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what color you are. It just doesn't matter. I mean, and as far as the spiritual aspect on my journey, I've been on it ever since I came down here, and I choose to come down here. So if I can make a difference in someone's life, that's awesome.
That's a great thing. Yeah, definitely. Anytime we can make a difference in anybody's life, that's always an amazing thing. I was just wondering, do you think that in some ways we might be trying to infringe too much on things that maybe we should not be infringing on? I'm thinking about like the fact that we are going back into the space exploration once again. And I know that one of our producers has done work with NASA and we've done stuff around the ocean, which of course we have all kinds of unusual things. But I was just wondering, what is your feeling as to how Mother Nature and the Earth and society are feeling about us making these voyages into, say, space or into the depths of the ocean?
You know, Mother Earth, she can take care of herself. She's more resilient than anyone ever knows. I mean, you know, humanity is the ones that, like I said, we have to choose the right paths in order to save this planet. Because it's going to basically to hell in the handbasket if we don't start standing up and start saving, you know, doing the right things, like whether it's the plastics of the oceans or whatever the case may be, you know. And what to say? I'm just kind of lost right now because, yeah.
No problem. One of the things that I've noticed, and I was just wondering what your thoughts on this, is I know there's been a move to like the minimalist society and to have like more and more people trying to step back and not spend as much time with electricity or as much of wasting of resources, whether that's not going on as many car trips, whether that's not going on that in order to save the environment. Do you think that humans are doing enough of that? Because I know that even a friend of mine actually interviewed a soil researcher who actually just won a major world prize about his soil research, and he lives in Ohio. But that gentleman was talking about how much we waste on an annual basis around the world in our food, just in terms of food waste, and also some of the irrigation habits that we have that are not the best irrigation habits around the world. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of how you're in terms of trying to improve the environment. The environment, I agree, is something we as humans can be doing better to improve it. But I wonder what some of the things that you would like to see improved in the environment, and what some of the things that you would like to see just the world do better in terms of environmental improvements.
You know what I'd like to see is us all go back to it. A lot of people will do it because we have too much convenience and stuff. Go back to the good old days when you lived off the land and you did bartering. Okay, you want to do something for someone, then they do something for you. And you live off the land and you respect it. Now, I know we're at that stage where, I mean, we've got so much going on here, whether it's money, greed, power, or whatever. But the only thing that a person can do as an individual is work within yourself and show others the love and compassion that you have. Well, like I said, whether it's the animals, Mother Earth, whoever. That's where it all comes from. And I believe in my own heart of hearts that once you start working within yourself and things start changing, then, like I said, everything else changes. As far as all the chaos and stuff going on in the world, the more you feed into it, the bigger it's going to grow. the more love and compassion you give and the kindness, then that's more it will grow. As far as saving the planet and stuff, you gotta use your good judgment too. There's too much crap out there where I believe that we should go back to where there's hardly anything in order for people to get a reset.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I do wish more and more people would do that. By the way, I did see that we had a person comment, I believe, from Twitter, Freeman788. So he was watching, and Tim Tone, my friend from Pennsylvania, was also watching our as well. So if folks got any questions that they would like to share or anything they would like to comment on, we are always here waiting to hear from the comments when we're having these great conversations with our different guests that we have on a regular basis. But I was also wondering, just as we get ready to wind down in the not too distant future and everything, what are some of, when you talk to your folks in First Nation? Well, I had two questions. One, I have a cousin who is very much involved in the powwow. There's a lot of the powwows around the world and around the country, and I was wondering, are you a big fan of that powwow culture? Because I know my cousin Berna, she has a part of Raven Street. She has a dance school in Hollister, North Carolina. I have the Halifax in California, Canada, the Halifax down here in North Carolina. But I was just wondering whether that was something that you get involved in yourself. Like I know she and her husband, who is I believe part of Patrick, travel around the world doing these competitions.
Yeah, no, I'm not directly involved in the powwows, and what a powwow is it's honoring the whole of creation, and that's a beautiful thing. And like I said, when I'm not working, I'm very much a hermit, and I don't really get out too much. And this is how I thought, well, let's start getting out. But yeah, as far as the powwows and stuff, it's a very sacred thing. It's honoring Mother Earth and all of creation.
No doubt about that. It's definitely honoring Mother Earth on a regular basis. I know you said that you're a hermit, and actually, surprisingly, to do this kind of work, I will sometimes have my hermit moments as well. Because like I said, I do this kind of work. I will also take some time to reflect or spend some time internally. While I may get out with some of my friends and things of that nature, I do also spend some time internally, because I think that you have to have those moments where you're internally spending time with yourself. Like even the most popular person in the world, I think sometimes needs to have some reflective time away from that hustle and bustle, just in order to survive and in order to thrive. That's kind of the philosophy that I have in life. Sometimes you need to have that downtime and that reflective time. But I was just wondering, in Canada, when you talk to folks that might be part of the First Nation, I think down here in the United States, there's been a lot of talk about changing names, whether that's the Confederate monuments coming down, or whether that's some of the teams that were affiliated with Native teams changing their name. Like I know the Redskins are supposed to be changing their name in the football field, and I think there's others that are having that conversation. I was just wondering, have you had any conversations with any of the First Nation people about that, and if what have they told you are their feelings about it?
As far as name changing and stuff, somebody coming up with it, anybody that's secure in their own heart of hearts, it shouldn't matter what so-and-so names or whatever. Like, I mean, that name, I take it you're talking about, I don't follow sports that much, but it shouldn't matter what they name that name, as long as they have a good intention. It's their intention what matters the most. It doesn't, you can have a name of a basketball guy or hockey or whatever, but it's your intention behind your name and your thoughts that make the difference. And as far as people rising up, whether it's Black Lives Matter or whatever, you know what? All our lives matter. Doesn't matter whether we're red, green, or whatever. And your name, yeah, it's kind of supersedes you. So if they're misusing a name and people think they're misusing it, well, then they should sit down and have a chat and say, on the Native side of things, a lot of things are sacred. And people do abuse the names and whatnot of things. But, that should be sit down and discussed between the two parties, I believe.
No, I agree with you totally. I know one of the things that really threw me off, and I don't know if you ever read the book, but I just finished, I'm actually in the process of reading. I haven't finished it, but I've been reading Bury My Heart in Wounded Knee, which actually talks about the history of the First Nation and the way that America, when it was created, basically cheated the First Nation out of a lot of their rights and things of that nature by basically putting out some contracts and other things that were totally unfair and totally unjust. But I've definitely been reading that book. I remember, as I told one friend of mine when I first started reading the book, I had to tone down my energy levels because it was definitely giving me that negative energy based on some of that history. But then I realized that was a lesson in history, and we do have to learn from our past and learn from history. So then after I took it in a different context, put it in the context of that was history and not letting it get to my nerves, then I was able to pick the book up again and begin to read it again. But I know when I first picked up the book, and I had seen the book some time back, but I had ordered it from one of our ordering sites and everything, and then started reading it. But when I was first reading it, I too had to tone down that negative energy, because sometimes even when we want to study history, sometimes that study of history can highlight some points that we might not want to reflect on or deal with, and then you just have to like pull back, refresh, and put it in the context of what it is, which is that it was history and it's something that we can learn from.
You know what, my opinion on all that, the history and stuff like that, if you strip away the greed, the power, the money, that kind of stuff, you wouldn't have no separation. And there would be no control over humanity. I mean, man, we're all created, we're all safe, we're all connected. So as far as I'm concerned, if the money would get out of the equation and the people think they have power and all those, the governments, the banks, everything, if they'd all drop, we'd be back to where we respect one another.
Yes, and I agree with you. So it sounds like you would love us to get away from this kind of economy that we have, where everything is so consumer oriented and so money oriented, and get back to where we actually, as you said earlier, doing the more natural kind of things of bartering with friends and relatives and able to communicate with them that way. If I've got if we want to have dinner and I've got a couple of vegetables and you've got the cow, then we get together and we create a perfectly fine dinner together, because you providing the meat, I'm providing the cucumbers and the lettuce or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the way it should be. Like, yes, we can advance in technology, but in my opinion, I think we're so far behind in technology, I think we're ahead, because Star Brothers and Sisters, they've been doing mining from Earth to the moon and all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't know where humanity gets off on where they think they're so far ahead, but in actuality, we're so far behind. When you get ahead, you get to that consciousness, then you don't even have to go anywhere to build something. You don't have to go anywhere to even talk anybody. You should do it telepathy-wise. Like, I mean, like I said, we're so far behind that it's pathetic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And going through, going sharing and stuff like this, like we were just talking about. Like, okay, I've got, vegetables for this dinner or whatever, or I'll build your house and you're the window maker, you'll make the windows. I believe really that's where we should be at. And even in this day and age, it wouldn't hurt whatsoever to take the money out of the equation and the power and the greed.
Definitely. So if I'm hearing you correctly, so you're actually thinking that probably the pyramids and some of the other things that we consider the great wonders of the earth were actually not built by us, but were built by other folks that were coming from other places and other parts of the universe, if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
It makes a lot of sense, and if that's the case, then we're way behind, because I mean, we may just now be getting to the flying cars that the Jetsons were talking about, but we're nowhere near being able to build an entire pyramid or some of those other great wonders of the world that people are always talking about and are oftentimes trying to figure out how they came about and everything.
Oh yeah, and and the government, don't worry, they've got these underground tunnels and stuff like this, and they're doing, tests on humanity and stuff like this. And you see all these kids or these people go missing. I believe a lot of it is the government takes them. Plus, I believe also that the alien species called the Star Brothers and Sisters, they're not all negative, and it's love and light is what it is. but humanity tends to create all this chaos, and then people fall into it, and then create a bigger chaos. But when you look at it with love and light, it makes a big difference. Like, I mean, man, it's a simple solution to life. What more could a person want?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm also wondering, even some of the great First Nation societies, because I know I've done a little bit of studying of some of the great things that happened in Mayan culture and Aztec culture and things of that nature. And I'm wondering if they were not also receiving some of the aid, or might have even been members of the Star Planets and Star Brothers and Star Sisters that were there building these things. So I'm just wondering, do you think that some of these earlier First Nation people were members of the planets from other places, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I believe that. They're still down here. It doesn't matter if they're First Nations or the Cree or the Métis or whatever. We're all, like I said, we're all connected. And yes, our Star Brothers and Sisters are down here. It's just the only bugger is that we choose not to remember who we are and what we are, and why we're here. And that's what we're learning now.
Wow.
And yes,
yeah, like I said, I know that my good friend that does his show, he definitely is of the opinion that he was sent down here. Part of that is he's definitely a fan of punk music, but he also definitely sincerely believes that he was sent down here on a mission. He's accomplishing that mission. He wants to do more of that mission before going on to the next plane or whatever that next plane is. So I think that there's a lot of folks like that have that kind of philosophy and that kind of thought going on. So you said that you're in that part of Canada where you're in right now. Are you looking to stay there in terms of like going and what are your ambitions and what you hope to accomplish? And also tell folks how they can reach out to you if they're hearing this message and would like to learn more about your philosophy, your thoughts, and how they can possibly even connect with you if they're interested in connecting with you in order to try to bring about some of this change that you would like to see happen.
You know, the best way to connect with myself is check out my website, circleoflifehealing.net. And that pretty much explains who I am. Like I said, I'm not used to being on air or with all this technology, but I'm giving it a shot. I know that I can heal and help assist healing and so forth. And there's also, you can email me at spiritwalker5678@gmail.com, and or you can call me on my cell phone, 780-518-5665. I've also got a Patreon site, which there's about 3 levels, data and bliss learning as well. And it's called patreon.com/Mystic Woman. Talk about Mystic Woman, yeah, that pretty much suits me.
All right. And explain how you came up with the name of your company and what that means. I mean, I have an idea of what it means, but just to explain to those that are watching what that means and why you came up with that name.
The circle of life to me means, helping the animals, the healing, the communication, helping humanity, healing and communication, talking to the rock people, all kinds of stuff. And I've been through abuse, I've been through mental, physical, each day I've got something to learn, but I have a lot to offer anyone that's interested. So that's what that circle of life means to me.
Sounds great. It sounds like you've gone through a lot. And what advice would you give to others that have gone through that? Because I've actually got some friends of mine that have gone through different types of abuse. I mean, whether it was marital abuse, whether it was abuse as children, whether it was whatever. And I know oftentimes they want to tell their story, but they're afraid that the platform isn't going to be big enough. They're afraid they might expose too much of their own hurt and pain in terms of telling their story. So as you think about the ways that you have told your story, what advice would you give to others that have a story that they need to share? Because I think that there's so many stories out there that need to be shared. Because like I said, I have a number of friends, particularly ladies, that have gone through certain kinds of things, and they would like to share these kind of stories to the rest of the world.
Well, you bet. First of all, don't be ashamed or whatever what you've gone through, because naturally you've gone through it for a reason, specific reason. And, don't hold it in. Whatever you do, don't hold it in. Either take out a journal and start writing, start meditating, do something, because you've got to see the wonderful person, human that you are within yourself. Not what everybody else thought you should be or what you should be. It's within yourself. Because I do neuralistic programming and stuff too. And you know what? It's forget what anybody's ever taught you, what everybody's ever said. You have all the answers. And once you start digging in there, yeah, you do have the answers. And sure, it takes people to help people, but man, don't be afraid to step up and tell your story too.
That makes a lot of sense, but I'm oftentimes afraid that too often folks are too ashamed or too afraid to tell their stories, and that's where I wish people would do what you've done and actually tell those powerful stories and share their stories, because I also think that we sometimes have a bad habit of internalizing our pain and not sharing the pain with the rest of the community in a positive way, in a way that helps enlighten what's going on in the world. But I do know that sometimes whatever that pain is, whether it's pain in relationships, whether it's pain in the job, whether it's just pain in all kinds of relationships that we have, whether that's job relationships, career relationships, life relationships of between the couple, between significant others, whatever those relationships are. I do feel that too often we internalize things, and it sounds to me like one of the things that you try to encourage people to do is to actually tell their stories and share their stories. It sounds to me like that's part of your healing process as well, not just for yourself, but also for your clients.
Oh, you bet. And then, even helping others to heal, whether it's the animals, plants, whatever, humanity, it helps you to heal too. And never, ever feel that you're not loved. I used to feel that many, many years ago when I went through the mental and physical abuse. But you know what? I look at it now, and I think, you know what? That was a gift. Because that showed me the strength of the power within myself. It's not to control anybody or anything like that. It's the power and also the knowledge to know that we are all loved.
Yeah.
Never go through a moment without knowing that you're not loved, because you are.
Wow. And I was wondering, how do you feel about the whole, because you said, and you touched on it, the fact of the mental illness and some of the things that you went through with that, or the mental things that you went through, mental abuse or whatever. But do you think that sometimes society does too much of trying to medicate what's going on in the world? Because that's the other thing that I fear, is that too often we try to over-medicate what's going on. And I'm a big proponent of us not doing as much medication, because I know that even here in, I'm in Durham, North Carolina, but even here in Durham, or any parts of the United States, I would argue parts all over the world, that too often we see a kid that's hyper, like a young kid, and we're ready to give him Ritalin or some other drug. And then I like to tell friends of mine, what kid do you know that isn't hyper? So like I said, most kids are hyper in one form or another. I think that's part of being a kid.
Yeah, and you know what, I think that they take these kids and think, okay, whether they give them this Ritalin or whatever the case may be, go to the root of the cause. And a lot of these kids that are so intuitive have high anxiety, have, insecurity issues and stuff like that. And I mean, acknowledge them for their gift. Like, if they don't have something in front of them, then put something else in front of them and talk to them. I mean, it's an understanding of humanity and where they're coming from. It's not necessarily putting all these drugs into people and then trying to cover up something. And on another note there too, and I've been through it, whether, you try to hide things. So you're going to either cover it up with alcohol or drugs or whatever. It doesn't work, because it's still there. You still have to deal with it. And like I said, the only way to deal with it is to do some deep diving within yourself. And you have just realized that we have no control over anyone but within ourselves.
Yeah, that's very true. That's the only people that we have control of. Like I said, I think I got about 5 minutes to get ready to wrap down everything. But I was just wondering, do a couple of things. One, I want to definitely leave with whatever final thoughts you would like to share to our audience, and to share with the audience whatever that final thought might be, or final message. We got a message to the world leaders, and we can share that as well. I was just wondering, do you think that there are ways that you can recognize or know when you are in the midst of somebody that is part of the One Star Sister eternity, or is it just something that you'll never know until you get to the other side that you are in the midst of those presences, unless they tell you? Because I have had some folks that are friends of mine that have told me that they were within that society and they reveal themselves that way. But I was wondering, do you think that there are ways that you can tell when you're in the midst of these great folks?
Yeah, there is, because once you change and you found the power of love within yourself and stuff like this, like, I mean, that is when everything changes around you. If you'll know you know, a family member to leave or whatever, and I guess the biggest message I have is to harness the power of love within yourself. Then you'll be able to literally move mountains. As far as the leaders of the so-called planet, I really believe that they got to cut the bullshit, get to the point, and start looking out for all of creation. Not just for themselves, not for their own agendas. It's for everybody, we as a collective. Because we are so strong within ourselves, and once we change within ourselves, we can, like I said, move mountains. We have a leader that's willing to help and assist in that and give positive growth to everything and everyone, then that's where we're going to be. It's a place of love and compassion, and it will come to that.
I think that you're absolutely right, and I look forward to that day when we see that and everything. Because I was actually thinking about how sometimes things that are revered in American history also have a place in other history as well. So I was like thinking about that when a certain leader of the world went to go speak at Mount Rushmore, but then he also realized that was Lakota territory as well. And I think that sometimes we forget that some of these great monuments are also on the property of our ancestors, and that our ancestors actually were there many moons before those monuments were put there, before whatever was put there was placed there, and so we need to honor their presence as well. So I'm not saying to tear down the monument is a great thing. You definitely honor some legends of American history, but at the same time, I do think that we have to honor the history of those that came before those forefathers of the American country that are on Mount Rushmore. I think you have to honor some of the Lakota Nation as well as some of the others that were there, whether it's the Cherokee. There were so many tribes and nations. I even lose track of how many nations there were, but I know there were many nations that were here in the Americas before it became the United States of America, and before Canada became Canada, and before Mexico became Mexico.
Yeah, well, you know what I think, Mark, is that the whole thing that causes all this eruption all over the planet is power and greed. You strip that all away from anyone or anything, then guess what? You get back to the basics of respecting one another. It doesn't matter what color you are, whatever. We're all connected, and that is my biggest thing for anyone listening. Is to get to the harness, and I'll say it over and over again, harness the power of love within yourself. Yeah, it takes a lot of work, but at the same time, and the same with these leaders, if they look inside themselves and say, look, who am I doing this for? Because the majority of this chaos is over minerals, which is a crop of gold. So that's my message. Basically, like I said, you know what? In order to change anything, we have to change ourselves.
And that's a very powerful message, and I think it's a message that many of our listeners that have been watching us can definitely take heed to, which is that whole concept of definitely changing ourselves and changing ourselves for the positive. So like I said I would be with you for about an hour, and that's about where we've been at. So I'm here to wrap everything up. So once again, if you've got any last words that you want to share, this is your opportunity to share those. If you want to give people another shout out as to how they can reach you one more time, or you just got any other powerful words of wisdom, because I do appreciate the wisdom that you have shared, and I thought there was some great insight that you gave, and I hope that people are definitely listening to what you said and are paying attention, because I thought there was some very powerful words that needed to be heard. But if you definitely have any other thing that you'd like to share, even about your past or about just life in general, then the floor is yours.
You know, Mark, I'm very grateful to be on your show, and I know the exposure makes a big difference. I'll tell you what, if anyone wants to get a hold of me, like I said, email me at spiritwalker5678@gmail.com, or phone me on my cell phone, 780-518-5665. Check out my website, circleoflifehealing.net. And if I can help your animals or yourself, and I can help anything or anyone, just give me a shout, because that's what I'm here for. And I mean, we all have gifts. So just find out what those gifts are and your passion and move forward.
Well, I definitely appreciate you being on the show, and hopefully I'll get you back on in the not too distant future. But definitely, I hope that you do get some business from folks learning about what you're all about. So I'm going to wrap up the show right now, but I definitely do want to thank you for being on and sharing that very powerful message that you were sharing. And I do believe, and I know that a lot of members of my IBM family also believe, that we do need to work on improving ourselves and do that on a constant basis. And that is what this whole world is about, is us trying to come internally and discover our true purpose, our true meaning, and actually living that meaning to its fullest. So definitely thanks for being on the show, and I look forward to seeing you in the not too distant future. Who knows, maybe after coronavirus is over, we can actually find a place that we can actually meet and see each other, because unfortunately with all going on with the coronavirus and the way that things are being regulated and put out there, a lot of travel is not happening. So I don't know when that'll happen. I know that some of my musician friends are saying they may not be doing concerts till 2022, but I'm hoping that that's wrong for their sake, and I'm hoping it's wrong for a lot of other folks' sake as well. So I know that I'm definitely hoping that we will get through this faster than we actually are being predicted that it will happen, and that we will move in the positive direction that we need to be moving in. So on that note, I'm going to end this show, and I look forward to seeing my guest that I'm going to have on the regular Monday afternoon show, who's going to be talking about the whole art of kindness and how we need to be kind to each other. And I think I've got a comedian that will be showing up, and of course I've got some other amazing guests that will be appearing over the next several weeks. So definitely want to thank Billie for being on the show, and I look forward to having her back on in the not too distant future.
Love and light to you all, and thank you very much, Marc.
No problem.